What's happening, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back to Junk Drummer TV, and welcome back to episode 4 of Know Your Role, my drum conversation podcast. And I am very honored and excited to have Will Hunt of Evanescence and Crossfade, and Black Label Society, and Tommy Lee Solo Band, and Vince Neil Solo Band. Cursory look of your discography and playing career will lead one to want to say, Will Hunt, leave some gigs for the rest of us. What's happening, Will? What's going on, man?
How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Pretty good. I can't wait to not have to start off one of these podcasts with this kind of conversation or this subject, but it's the big old elephant in the room with all musicians. And I think you're going to be a unique person to talk about it with us because you are in one of the biggest bands in the world and one of my favorite bands. I fucking love Evanescence. Uh, the pandemic has been the great equalizer to everyone
Yeah,
that from someone like you who plays in one of the biggest bands in a future rock and roll hall of fame type group down to the cats playing at the Moose Club around the corner. How has this affected you, Will?
I everything comes to a halt, man. It's like it's all stopped, and I think that on one hand, it's comforting to know that this whole thing of we're in this together, but at the same time, it's like, oh fuck, we're in this together. Like this is not good for any of us, no matter what level you're on. And I think that I'm thankful for what I have and thankful for what we've been able to do and things like that. But at the same time, and I think we all are, but at the same time, it's like all we really want to do is what we've worked so hard to do, which is play music for people and be out there and about. And I think the only real positive that I can take from this and from a career standpoint is we had time to really focus on this new record that's coming out. But I feel bad for, yeah, we all are in this together. It's not leaving anybody unfucked.
No, no, it's not, man. I know that you're used to playing on the big stages. Like right now, if someone could say, "Hey, Will, there's a 200 seater, there's a 200 capacity bar around the corner. Would you go play that gig right now?"
Well, I have. I mean, I've
Oh,
done some gigs. I've played. How many gigs have I done since the lockdown started?
okay,
I've done one, two Vince Neil gigs
okay,
and two Slaughter gigs,
okay.
and then my cover band, who I'm in a cover band with Jeff Blando, the guy that's the guitar player for Slaughter and for Vince. He and I have been playing in a cover band together since '95,
Okay.
um, and we did Sturgis for better or for worse.
Oh,
Uh,
You saw Chris Jericho there.
I did not.
Oh, okay, because I know he played that this year.
But we played Full Throttle Saloon this year,
Okay.
and it was supposed to be this socially distanced thing, and they talked about it, and it is what it is. But I think at one point you just have to go, look, I've got to try to have faith in that people will do the right thing and kind of get out there and give people a little bit of happiness. And for me, that sort of justified the means of doing it. I'm very concerned about the virus. I'm very concerned about people's well-being, of course, but I'm also very concerned about people's well-being mentally.
Yeah.
And and I think that there's a fine line between the two things. And if like the Vince and the Slaughter shows that we've done have been socially distanced. It's like 3,000 seat venue with 200 people in it. That are really spread out, which
Right.
is
Right.
interesting in itself. But yeah, I mean, I'm down to play and try to give people some entertainment and some joy, just as much as it brings joy to me. So yeah, given the right situation, I'm fucking down, man. I'm in. you know
Dude, I did a live stream about a month and a half or 2 months ago, and it was just like 4 or 5 It was 4 or 5 songs, and it was in a sound stage, and we were just playing to the crew and like whatever other bands that were waiting, and like, dude, it felt like I was playing at Madison Square Garden because I hadn't
yeah.
played. Like, I got my stuff out of my cases, and it was My shit hasn't been in the case that long since I bought that drum set. You know what
Like
I
a
mean?
time capsule now at this point.
Seriously, a podcast that I will listen to. It's these cats that actually I think they live in Miami, and the guy was talking about like he was at a bar the night before. You know, you're okay telling people you're from Florida or you're living
Oh
near
yeah,
Florida. Okay,
absolutely.
man, I'm about to move down there, brother. I'm about to come to Florida, man. It seems like everybody's coming there too. You're gonna have
A lot of
an
people are, man.
influx,
A lot of people are. But
but this guy,
it's a strange dichotomy here, man, because like technically the state is wide open,
right?
but we have downtown, like our down, and I live really close to downtown, but I basically live downtown. And like all the clubs, nightclubs, and stuff like that are open and they're packed to capacity. I mean, they're slammed. It's freaking nuts.
Well, that's
But
what this. Sorry. That's what that guy was. Because this goes to your point. That's what this guy was talking about. He was at a bar for like the first time since the lockdown, and there was just a band playing, and it was just kind of your like, your dad cover band, and it's Florida, and they were like doing like Jimmy Buffett covers, and the guy was just like, I'm not a Jimmy Buffett fan, but I had more fun
yeah,
at this gig. He
that
was
felt good. Yeah, I
right,
mean, I think that like a lot, we're in Florida, so there's a lot of outdoorsy type places where you can have that kind of stuff, and it's opened up quicker for that reason. And I think our numbers have stayed, fairly low. We're
Mhm.
not like out of the stratosphere with them because of that. But like a lot of the indoor venues, the smaller venues, stuff like that, even though they can be open, they've been really reluctant to have more than like 25-30% capacity just because of a moral concern of like we still need to do the right thing. And then on the flip side of it, I mean, there are a lot of people, a lot of musicians, bands, etc., that also feel um, that moral thing to like, man, we don't want to be, part of giving 400 people the coronavirus and become,
Right.
hosting a super spreader event. And it's, so even though it's wide open, it's still, I think there's a moral obligation to do the right thing, when you can. But
I think it's people have realized, and you see this a lot if you're on you're on your social medias, and I'm not on them a bunch, but
yeah.
I think people are now realizing how much they needed us.
Oh my God, yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, people are going fucking crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, just and it is one of those things. Well, we're all in this together, and somehow it's not comforting anymore. you know,
it's true, man. You see a
I
lot
just
of people
cannot
just like,
collectively say this fucking sucks.
yeah, no shit. But you see a lot of people who are just like, you see a lot of like memes and stuff of like, when you are down and got the blues from this isolation that we were all put into. Who did you turn to? And it was your music and the shit that listen to. I think that people are going to have a more like not like they didn't before, but even a more deeper appreciation for what artists are doing for them.
I think so. I hope so. It would certainly seem like that. I mean, a lot of the conversations when the live music scene does open back up, that it's going to be like the floodgates opening up, and which is a nice thing to think about. But I think to what you were saying earlier, I think before we started recording was that you're saying a lot of people say, man, I think we're another year out, another 2 years out, whatever. And I think it's somewhere in between that. I think what we're going to see is in the next couple of months, things slowly kind of opening back up once the vaccine does its thing and really starts to make a difference. And it's not going to be the floodgates. It's going to be the smaller outdoor type places, the bands that are, on a national level, the bands that are 15 and 20K guaranteed, stuff like that, where you can put, 1,000 people in a 3,000 seat venue, and still everybody at least breaks even or makes a little bit of money.
Right.
And, I think that it's going to be like that. I think it's not going to, it's going to be the exact opposite of how the lockdown happened. How it was like one day we were moving and then whoop, next day we're not. I think this is going to be really gradual.
It's something I realized too was the inverse of that is like, we were doing that live stream and like we're playing to, one of my best drummer buddies over there. And I
Yeah.
was just like, man, I really needed to perform for you all. And there's like 25 people in here.
Yeah. I felt the same way. I mean, playing some of these gigs that we played, it's 100 people. The Vince Neil gig that we did in Michigan at Soaring Eagle Casino was, I want to say, a 3,000 seat venue that had 500 people in it
Okay.
who were very spread out, very
Right.
spread out. And they had a really, really strict protocol about how they were running it and, how you were able to get in and things like that. And it was not a ticketed event. It was a invite only. And, it's just like, but even though, we were by and large playing to a vastly empty room, it was still, it's arena rock at its finest. And people were singing and jumping up, and you could see and feel the joy. And, it felt the same for us. Like you said, it felt like we were playing, a freaking stadium, an arena.
As much as you all think you need us, we need y'all just as much.
Yeah, it's reciprocal.
Yeah, for sure. Man, let's talk about that because you've already talked about like a few different gigs. We're a drum education channel here first. Dude, you're just one of the busiest cats. You're one of the baddest drummers going around. How do you keep all of that in order? Like right now, how many set lists do you have in your head?
Not many. Well, in my head, yeah, I have several. I mean, it's weird, man. Like I've always had an aptitude for being able to kind of remember things, and once I play it enough times, then it kind of doesn't go away. It's just like I might need to review something for a second. Just like, okay, what's this? And just it's really kind of about getting the muscle memory back. In terms of that kind of thing. But yeah, and, I mean, to be fair, a lot of what I do isn't like I'm not playing Dream Theater type shit, So if it was, I'd probably have to spend a lot more time on the memory side of it. But I think maybe not, man. I mean, I've always had an aptitude to being able to just remember things after I play them. I think the hardest part for me in all of it is learning the stuff initially, and then kind of getting to a point where I'm comfortable enough with it where I'm not thinking about it. So
Right.
you're really more of then it becomes more about the feeling. And that's to me, that's the much more difficult part of it than the memory side of it. But, I have several different set lists in my head.
Right.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of research on you and I watched a bunch of interviews with you. And you were talking about in one interview where you started out in the cover band scene where you were playing, 4 hours a night. I'm a drum teacher in my real life, and I have students who want to get in this business. And first, I try to talk them out of it, and then when I can't,
Exactly. Good man.
try to learn to code, brother.
Yeah, good man.
You know what I mean? I usually make them go outside, and I let them see my late model Ford or Honda Element, and be like, "This is
Yeah.
what you have to look forward to." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
It's
Will Hunts are the
first.
Will Hunts are the 0.01% of this population. You know what I mean?
Even I struggle, man. Trust me. It's crazy.
but you were talking about, and one of the things I tell all the students, when they ask like, what is a good way to start? And I'm just like, and I did it too. And so many musicians and so many, famous musicians that we know started out doing those 4 hour a night, 45 minutes, 15
Yeah.
off. And that really helps that chop out. Like people don't think of like memorization and recall as a chop, like you would think of, your 30-second note rolls and stuff.
Right.
Like how now that you're in this career of just like you're just super in demand, you're playing with everybody. How thankful are you that you can go back and be like, this all started because I was playing 4 hours a night and was having to remember all of this material.
There's not a day in my career that goes by that I don't think about that and how lucky I was to have that opportunity, and how much it shaped me into being able to do what I'm doing now. And I spent 4 years doing that in a band called Eli that was out of Tallahassee, which is where I somewhat grew up. And those guys they were all older than me. They were like 25, 26, 27. And I was a month out of high school, 17. And this band had a semi truck and, a full 140 par can light show.
Jeez.
PA. I mean, it was literally an arena show in a club. And I fell into this gig. I mean, I auditioned and got it the hard way, but just talk about serendipity and things like that. But I think that the first 2 months of being in that band, I was scared shitless and wanted to quit. I was like, I can't fucking do this because, I'm going away from home. And the way that band traveled was we'd leave on like a Tuesday, and then play the week, and then usually come back on like Sunday and have Sunday, Monday, maybe Tuesday off, and then go back out. And we did that every weekend. And we traveled from, South Florida all the way over to all parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee. We traveled that whole area, and playing, 3-4 hours a night, 4 or 5 days a week, 6 days a week. And, once I figured it out at the time, I didn't think, oh man, I'm really, like, this is like college for me.
I was
I
about to
didn't
just
really,
say that. I was like, you were in college. You were doing college.
I was about to, I was
You
starting
didn't
it.
need to. You were doing that.
And it was just like that happens. Like, the whole thing, well, I'm put it off for a year and I'll come back to it. And then, by the time 6 months, 7 months in that band passed, I realized that, I'm learning a lot, and I did learn a lot. And, most of those things that I learned back then still apply today, but for me, it wasn't, it was less about being super and overly technical and more about, watching people's reactions. And then we got into the songwriting side of it. And then it became about that, and just, I went as far in that as I could, and realized that, playing in a cover band, technically, even though we wanted to be an original band, it had a ceiling,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just needed, after 4 years of that, man, that's a grind. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and figure this, you're back then, man, we had 4 guys in the band and 4 guys on the crew. And we had 2 hotel rooms with, 2 twin beds in each, and you're living like that, by and large most of the year. And that's tough, man. I mean,
Oh, you
I'm not saying I'm in, Iraq getting shot at. It ain't that kind
right.
of tough, but it's mentally taxing.
Oh, dude, the last band that I was touring regularly with was a 7-piece band
Oh God.
with no crew in a white in the white E350 Creeper Ford van.
Yeah.
And we would, if we, on good nights, we would get that third room, but then a lot of times we were sleeping on the floor of a barber shop.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you know what I'm saying? It's like
So
you learn a
man,
lot from that.
so like we the podcast that I have with our mutual friend and a cat that actually is working with Evanescence, Adam Jones. We
Yeah.
had a podcast and it was called so you want to be a rock and roll star, and in parentheses, don't. We talked about, like, going to college and to not going to college. Well, what you just described there, I went to music school.
Okay.
But man, I was playing in my Uncle Mike's country cover band 4 nights a week.
Right.
And I learned, not to say that going to music school wasn't, it didn't give me an advantage. It did teach me a lot of things, but man, seriously, I say this to my students all the time. I learned way more between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.,
Yeah. I mean,
than I
yeah.
did.
I mean, I would think that that's very a valid statement, because to a point, because I think you're an educator, so you've got the background to be an educator. You've got that school, and there's a certain, I say this all the time, it's just the people are like, well, why don't you teach? And I have done some teaching, but what people don't realize is that it's a totally different game being a teacher. Like, and you need some core concepts that you're attuned with to be a good teacher. And it's like, so that for you, that's awesome that you had that school. But on probably a career side, in terms of wanting to play music, yeah, you got your most of your knowledge of that from between 10 and 2. And I think that that's something that a lot of kids don't have today. I don't say kids, but like young adults.
Yeah.
There's not that circuit now where you're out there grinding that. And yeah, you've got local bands, like there are local bands that play covers and do that whole thing, but not on the scale that it was back when I was coming up.
Yep.
And where, like I said, we were an arena show with a crew in a club. And that's something that was so useful, but it's just not, it's non-existent now. The only thing that's kind of common or I would say would be kind of close to that. Maybe some people have heard of and maybe seen is that Hairball band.
What is
Is it, you
that?
heard about that?
No, what is that?
It's basically they've got a big semi and they go and they have what they do is they do like they'll do 30 minutes. They've got like two or three different singers and they've got one band, guitar player, bass player, drummer. And then they've got like two singers that alternate and they get suited up. The singers like they'll do 1 30, 45 minute set, whatever it is, of Kiss, all Kiss. And the guy's got the full Paul Stanley makeup on, the wraps, the whole thing's like a tribute show. Then the next guy will come on and he's dressed like Dee Snider, like the full blown Dee Snider rig. And they've got pyro and lights and the whole thing. And that's what it was like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's people say, oh, a club band. It's like, no, not what you think of as a club band. Not
No.
somebody if you go down to your local, Green Parrot fucking dockside bar and they're sitting out there playing Buffett or, playing whatever. That's not what it was.
This is a show.
It's a fucking show, like a stage, ramps, Marshall stacks across the stage. I mean, legit.
So like you were like you had probably had a very unique situation where when you did finally get to those big shows,
Yeah.
you probably kind of felt more comfortable than the cat that had been not doing that because you had already were doing that seems like on a smaller level already.
Yeah, I was ready, man. By the time I finally got to that point, I was ready. It's like, and again, it didn't mean that I stopped learning because, when you get into that world, different curveballs are thrown at you, of course. But I mean, in terms of like how to travel, how to prepare,
How to stay healthy on the
yeah,
on tour.
mostly, and like how to perform. That was a big part of it. Is like, when you part of the why I got into music was the performance side of it. Like, was huge Kiss fan, huge Alice Cooper fan, huge, anything visual that came along with it. And, it's performance art, a lot of it. And
Yeah.
you learn things that, exaggerating movements and shit like that. And, make it look cooler and sound, make it look cooler than it actually is,
Well, I don't know about that because I did like by the time this comes out, I will have already released my analyzed video of you doing going under, and the all those stick tricks, man. I even tell it in the thing. I was like, kids, because again, I kind of cater this to students and people who are learning, like this is extracurriculars. You need to make sure you can lay that groove down real nice before you
Yeah,
start adding all this. Because a lot of times kids, man, how we were 15, we saw some cool shit. I
yeah,
want to throw that stick on the floor, Tom, and catch it.
yeah,
You sometimes have to remember, have to remind yourself, oh, I was that 15-year-old kid that like, saw Tommy Lee turning upside down.
yeah.
Like he was a really good drummer first before he did all of that. He
Well,
could
that's
lay all the
true.
grooves down
Yeah,
first.
you gotta have the basics, the fundamentals,
Yeah, yeah. How did
throwing
you
that in
when
there.
did you start adding all of that histrionics, all that flash?
I think, well, I mean, I think I've always kind of had a way that I play and that, just my body English when I moved, it kind of, I'm not Charlie Watts back there. I'm not playing jazz, I'm not, a lot of guys sit really straight and, that's how they play and they get around the kit like that, and it's, it's what they do. But, I use a lot more body English naturally when I play, which is probably why my fucking body's so damaged. But I think that I really started adding like the bigger stuff into it. I think it was when I saw the Looks That Kill video by Motley Crue,
Yep.
right when that came out. And it was just like, whoa, look at this dude,
Yeah.
nobody at the time was playing like that. I mean, you had guys, but now digging back into it a little bit more, there were some people doing that that were not quite as exaggerated as him, but what it was that he was doing it in a way that was just so fluid and it fit the music. There was a guy there was this band called Sweet, which
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of people know of. And Motley Crue owes a lot of what they did to that band.
Yeah, and they say that.
And a lot of bands owe what they did to that band, Queen included,
Right.
sonically. I mean, that's like one of the bands, just like people, all these other bands, they don't realize how much they pull for them. But anyways, that drummer was phenomenal, and he was a show guy, man. He was a twirler, and he did this solo back in the day. And you got to remember, this is the early '70s, but he did this drum solo where he they had big screens on each side of the stage, these massive movie screens, and one would come up and it was him playing, and then he would start playing with that, and then another one of him would come up and they'd all be playing together, and it was just this massive kick-ass fucking show that he put
Right.
on as a drum solo. And maybe less about technicality and more about groove and getting people to move and just the visual of it. He's a
Right.
performer.
Right.
And so I think that's the kind of thing that affected me, is just, once I went back and saw that, I was like, there's some lineage here that I've got to get acquainted with.
It's the stuff that non-musicians fucking love and go home and be like, this drummer was one of the coolest things that I've
Right.
ever seen.
Right. I mean, because let's face it, fucking drum solos by and large are boring.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah, dude, I hear you. Yep.
You know?
I'm glad you brought him up, and I'm going to do a video on him eventually. And there's a criminal, uh, uh, like there's a how do I put it? There's just no good drum cams of Tommy Lee. I think Tommy Lee, because he's so wrapped up in the mythology that is the Viking Raiders that was Motley Crue in the 80s and
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
That motherfucker's groove is so deep. He's one of the best drummers that no one talks about, because when you say Tommy Lee, you think the things that you think about Tommy Lee on the peripheral.
Things. Yeah.
That's, man, at the heart of it, that motherfucker was a bad drummer. He was a
Creative.
super badass drummer, man.
Like I tell people all the time, particularly like, some of the younger kids that ask me a lot of the questions and stuff like that. And, obviously most of them have heard of Tommy Lee, but they're kind of like, I don't know much about that. But the thing is that without Red Hot, there'd be no Avenged Sevenfold.
Right.
That's where it started.
Right.
That's what started that whole thing, that groove. And, without Tommy Lee, there'd be, there wouldn't be the showmanship that happens with it, and this, this sexiness that comes along with the drums. And he basically started that. And then I tell kids, and the one thing that you do need to get is the unsung record, that is the record that doesn't have Vince Neil's, the John Corabi record, the self-titled record.
Yeah.
Because that's a drum Bible. It was like John Bonham, 1994, whatever it was that it came out. It was just like such the sound sonically, the grooves, the pocket, the power, like the fills. It was just like, shit, man, this is like next fucking level. And it's like, people forget about that stuff, and it's like he deserves, and he's still in the conversation of like, the great drummers, but he's not as high up as he should be.
He's outshined by the periphery of the mythology of that band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you watch The Dirt, the last thing that you're going to get out of it is he's truly has one of the best pockets of any rock drummer of like the last like 30 plus years, man.
Absolutely.
Like his behind, like he's kind of like a heavy metal, or not metal, but like rock Abe Laboriel Jr., if you know who that is. Like,
oh yeah,
way back, man. And it's the pocket's so nice.
That's how I got that gig. I mean, it was a blind audition, and it came down to me and another drummer. And, I got the gig for two specific reasons. And the biggest one was, he said, when I close my eyes, I hear myself. He's like, when you're playing and I close my eyes, I hear myself, and that's for me.
Were you freaking out?
a hero, you know, it's a fucking massive compliment. And then the other one was like, and I can hang out with you. You're cool.
That man, that's a thing we talk about a lot. We talk about a lot on the podcast I do with Adam, because we're all four musicians on there. Is, when you get to the level that you're at, and even levels underneath that, hell, even levels of bands that are just on tour independently, man, you spend 22 hours a day not playing music. That hang is just as important as your chops.
You got to be a good guy, and you got to be around other people that are good guys, because if not, it's a miserable situation. And I've been in, and unfortunately and fortunately, because I learned a lesson, but been in some of those,
Oh yeah.
um, and it's just like, and I think that was the thing about being in that cover band for 4 years, in Eli's. Again, those guys were all older dudes, and I don't, not old by any means, 24, 25, or 26, whatever.
To a
But they
17-year-old is
they
a
had
lot
been doing
older.
it for a while, and they knew they weren't green. I was as green as the day was long. And, they had to show me how to be. And, when you're young, dumb, full of piss and vinegar, and, things that the world revolves around you, it was tough love. A lot of it, you get out there, you get your ass kicked for that kind of shit. And I
Yep.
did a couple times,
Yep.
but it was out of love. And, if those, thank God that those guys had the patience enough to see the talent that I had to stick with me and not go, get this fucking guy out of here and get me somebody that's experienced.
That's going to show up on time.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's like, listen, they realized, nah, he's good. We just got to mold him into being a man,
Yeah.
and that's what happened.
That's goes back to, I always talk about my Uncle Mike. I even have a tattoo of him right here.
Nice.
Like, he taught me everything, and I'm sure you probably do this too. Like, when you do a thing that is, quote unquote, a big thing, I always go back and think of like Uncle Mike being like, "Now, Stevie, if the van leaves at 8 o'clock, you're there at 7:50."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
little
You
stuff like
remember
that.
those things for
Yeah,
sure.
they didn't talk about that in music school. They weren't talking about that.
Nah,
I didn't go in with Mixolydian modes.
that's where, there you go. That's what you said. It's like you learned, well, that's real world shit right there that you can only learn from being in that situation.
Man, did you ever get to play drums with Tommy Lee?
Oh yeah, like we when we first started rehearsing for that, when we, well, before we actually really started full rehearsals, but I had like a period of like shit, man, it was probably about a week where we were just kind of getting things together, like sounds, and because there's a whole electronic element to what was going on. And and it was just, he played on that record, and the Never a Dull Moment record. And so it was just easier for him to sit behind the kit and us have ears on and him kind of go over it, and I could sort of see real time what he was doing. And there was an electronic kit and then the acoustic kit in there. We would just fucking go off together and just fucking groove, for a couple hours at a time, when the real job was to get sounds together and
Right. You're
learn
supposed to
stuff.
be programming these drum sounds.
Right, exactly. But it just wound up being that I was able to be just seeing him play, and his element, his stuff, and it's just like, he's like, what do you think? I'm like, that's fucking badass, man. Do that again. Play that song again. And I was able to say, yeah, keep playing, man. Me and him in a room, fucking grooving and him grooving. It was pretty fucking awesome.
Taking notes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And man, what you just said there, it's so easy to get in again into the mythology of like rock star lifestyle. But like, that's a cat, and probably at that point he had been in the business for how long and how many thousands of shows that he played, and he still just wanted to play drums for hours.
Yeah, still loves it. He's still a drummer, man. He's still, he's expanded his horizons just like we all do. You know what I mean? He's hugely into electronic music. Like his new album, is by and large electronic. And some of that I'm sure he played. A lot of it was programmed, but he's still a great drummer and still a great dude, and still, it's just fucking badass.
Dude, one of my favorite things that he was ever on. Did you ever watch the Tommy Lee Goes to College?
Yeah. It's
And
funny.
dude, at the the whole process was to lead up to him like playing in the marching band, and
Yeah.
like I come from a marching band background, and you can't fake that. And he was
No.
playing tenors, and I was just like, I knew it. When you see him blazing on the tenors, and I'm pretty sure he didn't march in high school. I was like,
No, he did.
oh, he did. He was a marching band
Oh,
guy in
that's
high
what he
school.
played in the marching band. There's
Oh
pictures
yeah.
of him playing that. Yeah, he did. That was his instrument. But
Okay.
he actually called me when they were filming that because I played those in the marching band too, albeit
Okay.
for a time. And he was freaking out. I was like, man, this is coming quick. And I'm playing these quads, and it's just like I'm fucking lost, and I notice these patterns and blah blah blah. He's like, what do you remember about this? And I had to tell him nothing.
I cannot help you.
I cannot help you, dude. I'm sorry, And he ended up pulling it off. But I mean, there's a part in that where he gets really frustrated,
Yeah.
trying to learn it. And that's real. I mean, but he did play that in high school. He did.
Yeah, that was a penultimate moment of that because the whole thing was, he didn't read music and or couldn't read music well, if I
He
remember.
could, he did, like he did it in high school. He played for 3, 4 years in high school, but he just, again, if you don't, that's the kind of thing, reading music, man. If you're not on it every, at least frequently,
Right.
you lose that.
It's
You
a
know,
muscle, man. Reading's a muscle.
fucking A it is, man.
So one thing I wanted to bring this up because I listened to this damn song last night, and you were talking about this 10-minute epic that you did for Crossfade.
Yeah.
Did those cats write that all out for you, or did they? Because you were talking about how like they had programmed it, and then they kind of wanted it kind of close to. Was there like, and you said the guy was like a Berkeley cat. Were you
Yeah.
having to read
Les.
that song?
No, I didn't read it at all. But Les is a freak. I mean, he's just a musical, he's operating on another plane, man. It's just like he's a freak. And he one thing is that they had worked on that record for the court for better part of probably 2 years, and just fine-tuned it and fine-tuned it, and they wanted real drums, so everything was recorded. So I went in, and I was the last thing to get recorded. I wasn't technically in the band at the time because it was Evanescence, or what was I doing? I was about to do Static X. I don't remember everything that was happening at that time, but anyways, um they he was really like, they had demo-itis, so to speak, because they had programmed those drums, and so they were used to hearing, those two hits on the 16th and the whatever on the ping, and that was one thing that drove me fucking crazy about him. He called it a ping. I'm like, no one calls it a ping, dude. It's the bell. It's the ride bell. We play rock. You don't call it a ping. Like, after 100 times of me telling me about the two hits on the ping, and like, let's get something straight.
Yeah.
And so, but he wanted that, real close to what he had programmed. And then I got it really close to what he had programmed. And then I said, okay, now let me put a little of my sauce on this. You've got that. Now let me put a little bit of sauce on it. And the producer, Ben Gross, was like, yeah, you brought him in to be Will Hunt, let him put the Will Hunt on it. So, and I really didn't change too much. I mean, there was really some, I changed up a couple of groove, like kick patterns, and added some hi-hats, like Stuart Copeland kind of shit in a couple sections, and, just kind of worked out some kinks that I thought sort of I felt it made the song flow a little better, and it kept about 90% of that. And so I'm really proud of that. It's a very technical song.
And it's called Making You Believe.
Yeah, Make Me a Believer.
Make Me a Believer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that was I was exhausted after listening to that 10-minute song the other night. I was like, holy shit.
It's an opus.
Well, when you said earlier, it's like, well, I'm not playing any Dream Theater shit. And I was like, yeah, but you played like this 10-minute fucking song that like had every feel and change in it.
Yeah.
So it like
Well, I finally got a hold of Les. I had to track Les down because I was doing some drum clinics over in Germany and in Italy, and I wanted to do that song. And it just so happened that when I finally got him on the phone to get the stems to make some playback tracks to do the clinics to, I was actually about to fly over there. And so I was like, I think this back to the memory thing. It's like, I never played that song live. So I'd only done it in the studio, however many takes I did in the studio of it, which was years before that. And I figured, okay, well, I can probably figure this out on the plane, you know what I mean? And then when I get there, and nope, it was just like,
Uh,
I am not going to play this song in front of people without having practiced it a few times,
I
because,
hear you.
it's like I can do a lot of stuff, but that's one. It's just like, man, I'm going to fall on my face if I don't practice this.
Man, what you said there is something that I talk about in the video that I just did on you. Uh, you said, like let this cat be Will Hunt.
Yeah,
One thing that I noticed, and I think, and I really want to, I'm really excited to talk about Evanescence because I really do love that band. I think she's phenomenal, and I think this goes to why they're such an enduring and endearing band is at the heart of it. They're not a label creation. That is a band, musician, band. She
right.
lets you, man, she lets that racehorse run. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem like she don't put a governor on you at all.
No, not really, man. I mean, and I'm respectful of that. You know what I mean? I try not to take too many liberties, you know what I mean? And I try to keep, the grooves, like songs like that everybody knows. I try not to go too far off, I keep the grooves and the big beats, that stuff. I keep it in pocket and maybe just make it a little groovier, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not more complicated and not showing off, but just, try to really make it heavier, make it, have more weight, I guess would be the way to put it. And, she's good with that. And I'm greatly respectful for it, and I respect that situation. So,
I
um,
do too because it had been so easy because you're playing a lot of songs that you don't play on. Like the one that I did was you doing a song that you're not on.
right,
But
just Josh Freese.
a lot of times, especially at that level, they're going to say, "Hey, play this fucking record, play this thing," and
Yeah,
she lets you be yourself, and it allows you. At least this is what I got from it. It allows you to connect more because you're not reproducing; you're creating still, and
yeah,
you're being respectful to the source material. But it's like this is what it would have sounded like if I was on this track.
yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, I think that, and I tread it. I didn't come into it hot like that. Like when I
You
came in,
gradually have to get there.
right, I just developed it into that. And
Trust, like she like
right,
does it feel like you'd have to like kind of because we've all done that where you join a band that already has a set uh uh a set of songs and you have to kind of like get them to know that like I'm going like the more you let me put myself in this, the more this is going to be good for everybody.
yeah, and well, and with that, it was never spoken, but you know, myself and Troy both came into that band in Evanescence in the middle of the Open Door tour. They had already been touring for, on and off for 8 months. So they were already in a groove. So when we came into that, it was like, okay, we got to try to play this as close to what they're used to as possible. But for me, some of it was just like, that's way too white for me. It's like I got this part screaming to be groove and just got no weight. Like, where's the weight to this section? And just like, how can I be respectful and kind of slip this in where they don't even notice a difference other than, wow, it feels really good. And that was a lot of what it was. It was just some very stealth like, changes that the only reason they would notice them is because all of a sudden they're doing this a little bit harder. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And
Well,
that was,
man,
it took a minute.
well, I was gonna say no disrespect to the cats that played in that band before you, but they're and of course I'm listening like a drummer. They're so much better of a band with you behind the drum set for
Well,
sure.
Rocky's a great drummer, man. And I mean, the first record was Josh Freese. He was a studio gig
Of
for him.
course it was because Josh Freese plays on fucking everything.
Yeah, he played. Yeah, he does everything. At the time, he was certainly doing everything, and he played on that record. And I think the story is that he came in and did the record in like 2 days.
That's a Josh Freese story.
Yeah, and like, and look, I'll be honest though, it's just like, yeah, he did it in 2 days, it's as simple as you can be, you know, and I don't
It was
think
studio drumming. Studio drumming.
studio drumming, and there wasn't a lot of thought into how do you formulate this instead of it being, a few fists pumping to one just big fucking fist. you know,
Right.
and I think that that's the difference between having a studio guy come in and do something and having a real band, which is what we have now.
That's the big difference. Josh Freeze there for a while was a meme. I was in the studio and was like having trouble and was getting frustrated, and the producer to cut the tension that I was causing because I was being hard on myself. He was like, I can just call Josh Freeze and have him come in here and do this today. I was like, God damn it! It's like, and
Yeah,
how good producers are so good at like, and I don't want to talk about Nick later, how like producers aren't just getting sounds on a hard drive or tape. They're almost psychiatrists in a
you have
way.
to be. Yeah, I mean, Dave Bendeth, who I've done a lot of work with, and he's worked with everybody. Still a very viable and happening producer today. He his background, his college degree is in psychology.
Oh no shit.
You know,
Oh
yeah,
my
oh
god.
yeah, dude.
Of course. Tell the people who we're talking about because I'm not going to try to say his last name.
Dave Bendeth.
Okay. So
Yeah, he's
uh
done like we did, a lot of the Breaking Benjamin stuff. He did. I mean, he's done Elvis. He did like the number ones for Elvis. He's done
Jesus.
Paramore. He's done. Wait, not Shine Down. I mean, if you look him up, it's just like, holy shit, this guy's done everybody. He's very famous cat. Red jumpsuit apparatus. I mean, all kinds of shit. Um, and he's a psychologist, man. He really is. I mean, he breaks shit down and makes you really think about it from a mental point of view. And it's a different way of producing, for sure. But yeah, I mean, he starts there instead of it kind of going there. He's
Right.
there,
those experiences, man, like getting to work with all those different producers, you assimilate that and you
Yeah,
move that on to the next session. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, totally, totally.
But yeah, let's talk about the new record. And I was telling you offline, I was cussing you a few weeks ago. I've got a student. Shout out Angie because she's definitely going to be watching this. I was teaching it's not the last single. That single's been out for a while. The Use My Voice.
Yeah,
And yeah, that halftime breakdown after the second chorus, and it's so Will Hunt, like it's like your kind of standard, dun, black, halftime thing,
yeah,
and then you do these toms at the end of it, and I was like, fuck, I can't. I'm in front of this student's like waiting for me to get this right, and I can't get it. And I gave her the let me work on it for next week, and I'll have it for
yeah.
you. And I had to go in and slow it down and figure out all those extra tom things you're doing. That kind of will move us back to what we talked about at the beginning. You are one of the few big bands that decided to release a record now because your standard thing is you release a record, you go on tour, you go on Kimmel, which you all did a few days ago.
Yeah.
But that's been broken. So like, how are you all able to push that in these times right now? This
I
great record,
mean,
by the way.
thank you. I mean, it's a double-edged sword because um, it's totally a double-edged sword because we need to put a record out. It's like, I guess you don't have to do anything, but we kind of started this process before the pandemic. Like,
That's what I was going to ask. Was this already, you're already in the process of recording it?
yeah, man, we were already in the process of the song was scheduled. They were already putting the song out. You know what I mean? It was going to come out before the song came out in March, and the lockdown happened. In March, started happening slowly and sporadically, and then by April it was locked the fuck down, and it was realized, well, now what? It's like we've only done 4 songs for this record, and it's like, what do you do? Like, I don't know. And I think for us, it was just like, well, we got to finish the record. So that buys us some time to finish the record. But you kind of just got to put it out, you got to kind of go for it. And we just felt like, that, it's time. We haven't put our new album out since October of 2011 of new material. Now we put Synthesis out, which was the orchestral reworkings of most of the music with 2 new songs. So there's been something, and there's been definitely, we did a really big tour, very, very successful tour for that. And but it's a double-edged sword because this record's really fucking good and it's really heavy. It's got a lot of weight to it. Lyrically, it's just the best thing I
Dude,
think that
she's one of the best lyricists
she's
in
ever
rock and roll,
written.
man.
She just keeps one upping herself with it. And I think, you know, the good part of it is that we had extra time to finish it and really sweat it and do it. And it's incredible. The bad part of it is that we're not in rehearsals right now to start a tour behind it.
It's as I was going to say is that habit is your body's probably like, why are we not playing these
It's
songs? Why are
weird
we not doing? It's weird, right?
because usually, like when I've had major releases like that, I've either been in rehearsals about to start a tour or been on tour. And so you're together to kind of celebrate the release and, have a release party, whatever it is. I've never been at home just hanging out when I've had a major release ever.
Ever.
So, so it's like, I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, we got to do something for it. We can't all be together. So we've got to, I don't have an answer for that yet, but
Well, you all did a pretty darn successful live stream a few weeks ago, months ago.
it came out, I think, a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Months ago it came out, and we, yeah, that was cool. But again, it wasn't, it was still very studio-esque. I was
That itch only got lightly scratched.
correct, and it's like we didn't do it like some bands have done it where we're on a stage, and part of it for us is logistics. Like we've got a guitar player that's in Germany that can't even get into the country right now.
That's something I forgot to bring up. So was she just flying her tracks? You'll just send them over there, and she was recording in a studio over there.
She did some of that, yeah. I mean, at the end of the shake, yeah, she did some of that. I mean, some vocals, stuff like that. It's, I think one of her strengths in this band that she's brought to this band is her singing ability. That there's another female voice that can kind of sing with Amy in some spots. It's really cool and adds a layer, another dimension to that sound. And certainly in a live standpoint, like, the Wasted on You video that we just did for Kimmel that Adam did. I mean, that's Jen singing the backups. There's no tracks. There's nothing going on with that song. That's her, and it's, it just kind of underlines what she, the cool factor that she brings to the band. But she can't come into the country, so.
I was going to say, even if she wanted to, she can't come, right?
I mean, I'm sure that, yeah, there's a way to get her in here, not without a lot of red tape. Like a really good friend of mine that I play with, this Italian artist, Vasco Rossi in Italy. He's American, this guy Steph Byrne, and he has a house in San Francisco but lives in Italy, and he's coming back, but he's a dual citizen.
Okay.
Because he married an Italian lady, and he's coming back into the country, and for him, there's a little bit of red tape even for him, even though he's a dual citizen. But if you're not a citizen over here, I think getting into the country is just really difficult. It's not impossible.
And man, you've got this great record, and it's just you can't play any of those. There's songs on this record that you probably haven't even played, like with the band, besides outside the studio, right?
No, yeah, oh yeah, not outside the studio. I mean, we haven't really played them together live at all. I mean, like, because the Jimmy Kimmel performance, it's live. It's one take of me playing, and the video of me playing that take, which is pretty much what everybody did. It's one take, so It's live, but it's just recorded separately.
Strange times we were in, brother.
I'm done.
Dude, I am too, man. I kind of like, I use the kind of the Moose Club band as my disparaging remark on something. And I came from that scene, so I'm not judging it. Dude, I'd die to go play a Moose. I'd go play a 4-hour gig right now.
Yeah. What's the fucking thing? Why can't I fucking think of it, man? The fucking veterans.
Oh, VFW.
The VFW, man.
My Uncle Mike called them very few women's.
Yeah. An impromptu set at the VFW, man.
Oh, dude, you just call them. I've probably played that cover. Let's do it. Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking of when you were talking about that hairball band. Like, you're dying to play the Kiss show, aren't you, with that band?
Oh my God, hell yeah, dude! Right, any of it, yeah. They're a cool band, man. If they come around your area, it's good. It's a good show to see. They play a lot of corporate stuff,
Okay,
but it's a trip, man. They're a good fucking band.
So that's another thing that you do, and I don't know if you still have it going on because again, I watched pretty much every interview I could find of you. Because
Sorry.
like a good music school kid, I'm doing my homework. Will
Yeah.
do you still have the Nirvana tribute band?
So I don't play. I haven't been playing with them in a while.
Oh, okay.
Something that I was doing just to have some fun and kind of goof off. And when I was in town to do it, I'd play with those guys, and then we actually ended up with an original band together um, called Thirst. And not sure what's going to happen with that. I mean, once the pandemic hit and just various things happened, it was just like we had some momentum going with that, and I was taking those guys over to Italy to tour with me in Italy, and we'd done that a couple of times, and we're really starting to build a following. We were basically opening for ourselves. We'd do a 30-minute set of Thirst, and then we do come back on and do the Nirvana tribute, and
That's awesome.
it was cool, man. I mean, it was a fun gig to play and have a good time. I mean, we were selling out House of Blues doing it,
No
here.
shit.
Locally.
That's
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
it's legit, man. It's like really fucking good, other than I have blonde hair. But like the guy that does the Kurt, other than being right-handed, looks and sounds just fucking like him. And yeah,
Dude,
no,
they're my Beatles. I play drums because of that band. Like
oh man,
that's my, I'm 43, so when Nevermind came out, man, I was a big old prog nerd, and I still am.
yeah,
But like, dude, that was just like a sickle to my dome
yeah.
when that record came out.
Well, it kind of ushered in this beautiful simplicity and angst in drum playing, and Dave is a great fucking drummer,
Yeah.
great fucking drummer, but it's weird how he almost kind of really didn't come. He didn't realize just how good he was until he did, the first couple of Foo Fighters records that he played on.
Dude, his best shit, I think, for like from just like a drummy standpoint, is the Them Crooked Vultures record.
That's a good one. I would argue and say that the Queens of the
Queens of the
Stone
Stone
Age
Age.
record. Yeah.
That would do. That would do. Man, do you know how he recorded that? Do you know that process?
No, not at all.
Okay, so that's Josh Homme or however you say his last name.
Yeah,
Homme, and it's that that desert rock dry sound.
yeah,
He did all that record without cymbals, so he would record the drums by themselves. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw some videos where like he would maybe have like some like electronic pads to kind of hit. So the
yeah.
drums are recorded by themselves, and then he came back after that and overdubbed all the cymbals.
I didn't know that they did that record that way. I've done a
Have
couple
you
of.
done that?
I have.
Is that a big man? Okay, because I know that J.R. Thompson talked about doing it.
Yeah.
He's a big studio cat in the '80s. How difficult is that?
Well, it's an interesting thing, man, and I think it's kind of an old art, it's to an extent because you're able to do so much in Pro Tools and kind of get rid of ambient noise, like go in and draw it out, whatever. But like I did it with Kevin Sherko. I've got a band with the singer from Stone Temple Pilots, Jeff Boot. He and I have a band together, and we um, have something coming out in probably the next 3 or 4 months ish. And we worked with this producer, Kevin Sherko, who has done like pretty much all the Five Finger Death Punch, like the last four In This Moment records. He did the last three Hell Yeah records. I mean, he's done a lot of shit. He was Mutt Lange's, right hand guy for a long
Okay,
time. Like did all the not Mariah Carey. What's her name? Mutt Lange was married to her. The country
Shania
Shania.
Twain.
He was there for all that stuff. The just a lot of the shit that Mutt Lange did, the Bryan Adams stuff. So he's a real polished guy, and he was one of those guys that wanted me to play without the cymbals. And what he had me do is he's got these cymbals that he's got like just like foam padding glued onto, and so you hit the padding, so you're still there to kind of play because with drums you need that to kind of
All
it's
four limbs working together.
yeah it's a fluid motion, and you can't just pull that out. It's balance. It's how you keep balance. So you're still playing those, and then and then we went back and put the cymbals in, and it's a just reverse playing on silent pads.
Right.
And it's a mind fuck. It's a really weird thing, but once it was finished, it was like, oh, it's fucking cool sounding. You know what I mean? But it's not how I would want to always do it, but it's,
Right.
and certain guys know how to do it and get the best out of you. Like I had another situation where I did it and it was very sterile and not that way. Kevin made it like, okay, I'm not missing that. It's just like, it sounds so fucking good and so unique. And he knew how to coach me through it. Work with this other producer and it was not that way at all. It was just it was odd, wasn't happy with the result.
And that goes to just like, you know, I talk about this a lot on the channel. Is like you can't say no.
Yeah.
You got to be flexible and be ready to do a thing. If
Yeah.
like if they want you to put bandanas on all the drum sets, you go do that thing.
Yeah. I mean, and it depends on what kind of a situation it is too. I mean, if it's your band and, let's say you're super experienced and all this shit, you know, then maybe you've got a leg to stand on. But the thing for me that sold me on it is that Kevin worked with, Vinnie Paul,
Right.
and he had already done
Oh man,
one. Oh
he's
yeah,
one of my
record.
heroes. Like Vinnie Paul's one of my heroes, man.
I miss that guy, man. He's a great dude, but and great, one of my heroes too. But I asked him. I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. It's like, did Vinnie? I can't imagine that Vinnie Paul came in here and he didn't play his fucking cymbals." He's like, "No, Vinnie did that too." He's like, "Yeah, he did it." I'm like, "All right, if he did it, then I'm doing it. I
Yeah,
gotta do it."
I'll do anything Vinnie Paul does.
If he thumbed it up and that's how you got that to sound like that way, then okay. And once I got into the process with Kevin, it made it very easy. And I warned him. I said, "Look, man, I've done this before, and it did not turn out well, and it was very difficult, and I feel like it doesn't sound like me at all." And he's like, "Well, just give me a chance," and he was right. He's 100% right.
Man, I'm so glad you brought him up because I just love talking about him. He's just one of the people that I end up talking about a lot on this channel. I'm going to tell you the story because I think you'll appreciate it if you're a big Vinnie Paul fan. Back in the day, I was a bartender at the metal club in my hometown, and this was like right when Hell Yes started. So like
Uh,
one of their first tours, because this was about 1,000, 1,200 capacity, right? So it just
yeah,
started. And man, this is such a beautiful fucking story. It just tells you everything you need to know about Pantera and how you should treat your crowd. Everybody was there. Everybody was there was Pantera fans, right? Hell yeah, had just started, right?
yeah,
No, we didn't. Nobody knew, but it was fucking him. That dude at the end that I've told this story. I did a Vinnie Paul video and I told this story on that one, but I think I want to tell you it. He stayed there until like fucking 4:30 a.m.
yeah.
and signed every piece of memorabilia and took every picture. Dude, we had a line at the very end of the night. He came up to us and he was just like, and that was one of the things that struck me. The manager didn't come up. He came up to, the guy who
Right.
was running things, was like, look, there's going to be a lot of people here that want to meet me. Set me up somewhere that can kind of be controlled, get them in a
Yeah.
line. And that dude, people were bringing in dime slime guitars and records and CDs. He
Like
took
Dimebag and Vinny.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
bringing in the dime bag guitar to sign. There
Yeah.
was, and dude, he stayed there till like 4:30 in the morning and
Yeah.
signed and took every picture, man.
Typically how they were, man. They were really giving and generous people, and definitely appreciated what they had, and knew where they came from. They came from that cover circuit too. Back in the day, they were traveling Texas and Louisiana and all that shit.
Those pictures are amazing from that time.
They were a cover band that was basically an arena show in a club, and that's how they got their start too. And you know, what's crazy is that in 2001, I had a band called Scrape that came out on RCA, and we were invited to go out on the Extreme Steel tour. We ended up, Vinny and Dime were fans of the band. They loved our record.
No
And
shit.
the Extreme Steel tour was Morbid Angel, us, Static X, Slayer, and Pantera.
Holy shit.
And on the surface, we thought, oh, this is amazing. We're honored. We were invited to go do this tour. As we got into it, we were like, we were getting our asses kicked. I mean, we were, first of all, playing before Slayer. I don't care when you play before Slayer. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Fans were just hungry for blood. And then, we're playing after Morbid Angel. And, the whole thing with us is that we were kind of part of the new metal thing, whatever. A little more punk derivative than that. But, Phil had insisted that Morbid Angel be on the tour. They were like, death metal.
Yeah.
And, Vinny and Don were like, couldn't stand it. Like, fuck this, man. So their whole thing is that we were their equalizer. They brought us on because they knew that Phil, because that's what he was into. He was going to hate us. So they're like, fuck him. He's like, this is a great band. We love this band. So that was an interesting story. And as this tour wound down, the last, we had like 5 or 6 shows left. We went up into Canada, and you can look this up. It's a fucking trip, man. The last, we had 2 shows that were us, Slayer, and Pantera. And then the last 2 shows were only Scrape and Pantera. And we played the last show that they ever played. We opened for them.
You played on the last Pantera show?
They flew to Japan to start doing some of the festivals over there, Summer Sonic or whatever it was. I can't remember the name of the festival that they were supposed to play. But they 9/11 happened. So they ended up not playing, and they were trying to get back to the States and ended up getting stuck in London. And everybody knows the rest. They got back and they never played again.
Wow. Did you literally were at a historical moment?
Yeah, I've got pictures, black and white pictures I took with the camera of that night, the end of the
Dude,
night.
I have like goosebumps right now.
It's a trip, man. Like, I mean, who could have known, I mean, they were definitely fractured at that point. Phil was not in a good space. And,
Yeah.
I've since become friends with Phil as well, but it was very heavy to think about, for sure.
Just knowing what I know about Vinny, I can see him loving your drumming because Vinny, of course, think of, a metal god, but he was the grooviest metal drummer in the history.
That power groove, that's what they call
it, man. Dude,
yeah.
I could see him loving your drumming. That makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, he was definitely a champion for me. We hung out together and really enjoyed each other, and he was always very generous to me. And it's just, I remember one night we played in Dallas. I mean, it seems like every time I played in Dallas, but no matter what band it was, he and Don were there.
Big Vin was there.
Him. And I just remember one night after the show, we wound up back at Vinny's house and in Dallas, and God, I don't remember who was there. I mean, it's beyond me. We were out on Scrape was out on tour with Static X, so I think Wayne was there before me playing with Static X. Wayne was there, and Tony was there, and it was me, and I think a couple of guys from Soil who were out with us were there. And Vinny had a drum set kind of in a room this size, like it's his full fucking drum kit. I mean, I don't know. I can't remember how we got behind the drum kit with the big long kick drums.
15, 16, 18.
Massive, like floor toms mounted, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, and we were sitting up there and he's showing me how to play Becoming.
No shit.
Yeah, that kick, that. And that was a fucking trip, dude.
Wow. Holy shit, man.
Yeah.
I bet you never thought when you were playing those in that cover band circuit that you would ever end up at Vinnie Paul's house being tutored by one of the greatest ever.
No, it was so cool. I mean, he had a party going on downstairs and we could have given a shit. We sat up in his drum room for probably an hour and a half until our bus came and picked us up. That was it. Basically got a drum lesson with Vinnie Paul for an hour and
a half. Oh man, what a cool life you live, Will Hunt.
Moments.
That's a phenomenal one. Well, man, that's such a really good story to kind of end us up with, man. I appreciate you coming on here and talking to me, man.
Pleasure, man.
Again, big fan. Tell Amy I love her. But before we go, is there anything that any plugs you want to get in? Tell all the good people where they can find you.
So new album, The Bitter Truth, is coming out March 27th, I think. I can never remember the exact date. March 26th, 27th, something like that. New single called Better Without You is coming out in 2 weeks, which is the heaviest single that this band's put out, I think, in its entire history.
You're loving it, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm digging it. I mean, I'm digging it, and I'm digging it because because we as a band are digging it and Amy's digging it, and Amy felt it, enough to be like, this is fucking awesome. She's feeling, I mean, I think that that's what this pandemic and the situation that we're in has done for everybody. It's stirred up the piss and vinegar in everybody's system a little bit, and everybody's kind of, embracing ways to channel that aggression.
Now's no time for ballads.
No, and herself included. And quite honestly, this record was going to be without a ballad originally. And at the last minute, man, she wrote this really, really, really beautiful piano ballad, and was just like, that can't not go on the record, because her original call was, I don't want any ballads on this album. No piano ballads. She didn't want to have it. It was just like, even though Wasted on You could kind of consider to be a ballad, sort of, but she didn't want any like piano, like slow, typical Evanescence ballads like My Immortal. And that was originally the plan. And then she wrote that song, and it was just like, yeah, Nick was like, you got it. This has to go on the record. So there's one, but it's really beautiful. It's a great song.
Did you get any writing on this? Because I heard
yeah.
That's awesome. And that, dude, that's that again, I think that's why that band endures and endears, because it's a band. It's
turned it into that. She's allowed it to become that,
and she didn't have to. She could have just kept bringing Josh Freese in.
She didn't have to do any of that. You know what I mean? And even when she did The Open Door, she and Terry wrote that record. It was just really her and Terry.
Okay.
Predominantly that wrote that record, 95% of it. It wasn't until the 2011 record that she slowly started to let that kind of happen, and she started the writing process with Terry and Tim. And then I came into it later, and Troy came into it even later than that. So I've got a little bit of credit on that record, definitely some, but of course I'm writing on my own parts and shit like that. But
yeah.
But this record, we've got a lot of writing on it, and myself, Tim, Troy, particularly with Amy, have a lot of writing on it. So
man, that just shows you how much of a real musician she is. Like we all know those situations where that you are a hired gun and you are to do, right. And when you hear, and especially when you see you all live now with you, it's like, oh, this is a band. This is a real unit.
I mean, look, she still has the right of refusal, so to speak.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Got to go through the president, you know what I mean, before it gets signed off on. But that's fine. Every band's got to have a leader,
yep.
And every band's got to have, one person that's completely focused on the exact vision. And it's good when everybody else is, all moving in the same direction, which we are. But somebody has to kind of lead that charge, and that's her place, and we're all very respectful of that, and also she's respectful to us at the same time. But at the same time, she knows what she wants, and she can definitely thumb some things down, and that's fine. And what she's not is like, nope, it has to be this way. The way that she is like, I'm not feeling that yet. Let's keep working on that, and or she'll come in with an idea. Okay, well, let's work on, I have an idea. Let's work on this. It's just like, she trusts us enough to, be like that.
That's the word, man. That's what I was hoping you'd get to, that word. It's that trust thing. And that's the best situations to be in artistically, because you're still feeling like you're not just feeling a role or coloring in the lines. You're still a part of you still in that.
Yeah. You're emotionally and artistically invested still, and
you can, and it comes across, and you can't really fake that.
No. And look, I don't want it to sound like it's all romper room in there either. I mean, there's definitely, we don't really have arguments per se in terms of when we're writing like that, but we do have some heated moments where, like when any band does, where
that's every band ever. I mean, dude, how many times did Stewart and Sting fight? Fight,
and that's on a whole other level. And I've been in bands like that, like it becomes that kind of a thing, and it's because you're dealing with really passionate and artistic people, and we're not immune to it. We just do it in a different way. It's just like, but it can get heated in there, and that's where Nick comes in, that's where,
talk Nick, about him before we get out of here. Nick, and again, I'm not going to try to say his last name, the guy who produced this record.
Nick Histrionics.
There it is. I can't, dude, I've tried to say, I can't get it. Adam's tried to tell me how to say that name. I don't get it.
Histrionics.
So
Yeah.
when you found out that Neil Peart's
Good
drum set was
Italian.
in there, did you immediately say, "Can I use Neil Peart's drum set?"
Yeah. Well, he's got one that Neil sent him.
Right, I know.
And we used pieces of it, like on the 2011 record and on this record. There's one song called "Game Is Over." In the chorus, there's this big tom beat. It's not a typical, on a crash or bell or hi hat, anything. It's a big, massive tom thing. Think like, sort of vintage corn. And I had my 10 and my 12 up there, and my 16 and my 18, and Nick's like, nope, not big enough, not heavy enough. And so what we did was we brought in, he had mounted like full-blown Vinnie Paul style. He had mounted 14 and 15-inch toms from that Neil Peart kit.
Right.
You put up on mounts, man, and here literally they're sitting, my head's about right here. And I'm Keith Moon style, and it sounds incredible, man. We use some things from that kit.
The last time I was down in Nashville hanging out with Adam, you messed me up because I was supposed to go in there and see that drum set, but y'all were tracking. I was like, because man, I'm, Rush fanatic as everyone should be.
Yeah.
And Nick says that no matter what level drummer, legendary guy from the street, it don't matter.
Yeah.
When they find out that like one of Neil's drum sets are there, everybody's like, can I play it? Can
I touch it?
Yeah. Can I touch it?
Yeah. It's an incredible sounding kit, man. And look,
is it one of the DWs from the final when he moved to there?
Yeah, I think it was from it's the kit that they recorded the first record that Nick did.
Angels and Airways.
I think so, yeah.
Or Clockwork Angels.
Clockwork Angels.
There it is.
First one? No, there was Snakes and Arrows.
There it is. That's the one.
I think it was the kit from that album, and he toured with that kit and did. There's another thing that he did for DW, like an instructional thing or something that he recorded with it, and then he knew Nick liked it and shipped it to him. Didn't even ask him, just said, "What's your address?" And all these boxes show up.
Canadians are the nicest people in the world.
I'm saying, dude, we could look at things.
They really are. Well, Will Hunt, man, I so appreciate you coming on here, brother. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you very much. And thank you all for listening. Go out and listen to everything that Will Hunt is on. You will be a better drummer because of it. And I'm not just saying that because he's here.
A better rock drummer.
Whatever. Dude, you've got groove like a funk player. I said that in your video that I analyzed. Yeah. I was like, this is funk groove. You have like a funk stuff in your playing, and I actually did compare you to Ray. I was like, he's got a lot of Ray Luzier in his playing, and this
Ray's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, Ray makes me want to quit.
Players, he's just better.
Oh man, I can't get you all. I can't quit asking questions. That's something that you said in one of your interviews, and I have found that from the most famous cat that I've ever talked to the cat down the street. Do we ever get over being down on ourselves? Does that ever stop, Will? Like when you're playing in front of 50,000 people, can you be like, I'm not an imposter, I'm really good?
No, I think what it is that you can have confidence in your own skin, so to speak, but then you can also look outward and say, all right, I'm still learning, there's still a lot for me to figure out. There's still some things that I can learn from people and pick up on, and I've done a couple things like with some different people, like one thing with George Lynch, and George has worked with Ray and KXM. And, the thing that George, is an incredible musician. The thing that he noticed, he's like Ray's a very up top guy. He's like, his hands are really fucking phenomenal. He's like, you're down below guy. He's like, your foot and your groove are phenomenal. It's like, that's the difference. If I had to pick one difference between you guys, it's that. And not that Ray's groove isn't fucking incredible, because it is. Yeah. But I come from a little bit different school than he comes from, and he's a very studied dude that just can play fucking crazy shit, and I love Ray. And there's a reason why that guy's doing what he's doing, and he's fucking incredible, and he's a cool motherfucker. So
yeah, he is.
He's like, but it's just I think I think I'm a little simpler, and it just so it creates a little more space. But he's playing what he needs to play for that music,
Right.
I think maybe that's the difference. I'm a simpler player.
Now, when you all now remember all you mere mortals out there, when you go out and watch Will play, he just called what he's doing simple.
It's it's meat and potatoes,
Yeah, that's one. It's there's some steak and salad and
some scallions
appetizers
in
in there
there,
too. Well, Will, man, thank you
sour
so
cream.
much, brother.
All right, thank you,
Man, I
brother.
appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, talk to you soon, bro.
See you, brother.
Later.